Welcome to another edition of the Parks and Recognize interview series. Thank you for helping us celebrate and recognize the remarkable Parks and Rec pros who foster community spirit, inspire engagement, and ensure that everyone has equal access to parks and wellness activities in their communities. In each episode, we sit down with passionate Parks and Recreation professionals to explore the crucial work they do, their journey in the Parks and Rec world, and the passion that drives them to do what they do. I'm your host, Atis Mosenipur, VP of Marketing at Xplor Recreation, and today I'm joined by the marvelous Miranda Maloy from the city of Lewisville. Thanks so much for chatting with me today, Miranda.
Thank you for having me, and good alliteration.
I'm a marketing guy. We got to throw in as much alliteration as possible.
Yeah.
Well, since this interview is all about getting to know you, I always like to set the tone with some fun little icebreaker questions. And for you, my question is going to be, what song is currently on repeat in your playlist right now?
Ooh, this is a really good one because I bounce around a lot for music. So this is not a typical answer for me. But I have really been digging the new Billie Eilish album. So I've been
Okay.
listening to Chihiro, that track on there on repeat. It's really, it's different. It's good. I like it.
Awesome. Awesome. So it's going to be showing up on your Spotify Wrapped at the end of the year.
Oh, probably. Yeah. I have a couple that it's going to be very embarrassing the number of hours I've clocked on some of these songs. So.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, Miranda, shifting gears here, tell us a little bit about what you do and where you do the work that you do.
Sure, yeah. So I am what they call a recreation program supervisor. So I do that in the wonderful city of Lewisville, Texas, at a recreation center called Thrive. And basically, what I do is I get to plan all of the really fun special events and outreach initiatives. I do a little bit of marketing, really a jack of all trades here, but my title is recreation supervisor. So all the fun things that come with that.
And I'm not one bit surprised that you wear multiple hats, as most folks do in Parks and Recreation. How long have you been actively working in the Parks and Rec space?
I've been in Parks and Rec specific for 6 years now.
And prior to that, kind of adjacent to the Parks and Rec world.
Yeah, I was in leisure services essentially. So I was in nonprofit kind of community outreach and leisure. So I used to work for the Boys and Girls Club. So all in all, it's been 12 years, which is exciting and terrifying to say. But all in all, I've been kind of in this field for 12 years, but in recreation and parks specifically for six.
Very cool. Very cool. And what ultimately led you to your career in let's say the leisure and parks and recreation world?
Yeah. So I actually really love this because when I was younger, I think I felt like most young people do. I was very lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a little bit of everything.
Mm.
And so I had no real like ambition or drive or maybe too much. So I didn't know where to go. I kind of got very like I don't want to shoehorn myself into one area. So I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I lived there for 20 years.
Oh
And then
wow.
I ended up moving to Texas to live with my dad. And so that was kind of what kickstarted my dipping the toes per se into this water. So I got a job working for the Boys and Girls Club as an art teacher. So I started out with that because art was my great passion. I was convinced that that's what I was meant to do. And it just kind of evolved from there. It became so much more than just teaching the kids art. It became like engaging with them and learning about them and being there for
Very
them. And
nice.
so my kids there really sparked this love of community and people and like getting to know people's stories. And it was so much more. It was like art in real life, essentially. So I went from being the art teacher to being a program supervisor over there. And then I ended up being a family engagement specialist, which meant my whole job was connecting families with resources like SNAP and TANF and stuff
Oh
like that.
wow.
And yeah, it was just the most heartwarming thing. It really made me feel complete. And then from there, just kind of kept bouncing around from different boys and girls clubs until I ended up in a municipality in Temple, Texas, where I was for about 5 years. And I think the really beautiful thing about my job and this field is that I never do the same thing twice, essentially. You know, every day is very
Hmm.
unique and different. And I get to be the artist. I get to be what my degree is in. My degree was being a therapist. I get to be a therapist sometimes,
Oh wow.
unofficially. community. I get to be a cheerleader and I get to be a musician and I get to be all these wonderful things with these kids. So I love what I do.
That's so special, and I'm
Yeah.
so happy to hear that you do, and I'm sure the people that you work with love having you there. You touched on a little bit of my next question, so it's actually a really great segue into it. I'm a firm believer that parks and recreation professionals are the heartbeat of communities everywhere. This is a question that we make sure to ask in every one of these calls. Miranda, what does community mean to you?
Ooh, it's so many things. I think specifically to me, community has always been the cornerstone of a good life, I feel like. Like I feel like in order to have, these things that you need to become the best version of yourself, you really need to have community. So, community is memories, it's families getting together, it's the things that you do, it's the people that you turn to, whether they're your blood relatives or neighbors on the street or even
Mm,
just people passing by. I feel like a good indicator of a good community is if you're walking down the street, people smile and say hi at you. That's when you know that you've got a community that's really thriving and loves where they are. So I think community can mean so many things, but to me specifically in this role, community has always been about the people that you meet and the mark that you make on each other's lives. So like I have tons of memories over my 12
mm.
years of people that I've met and the funny things that kids have said or the heartwarming exchanges I've had with seniors. And to me, that's what community is. It's just, the feeling that you get when you go home at the end of the day and you're like, man, I made a difference and this was really cool.
I love that. The mark you have on people's lives.
Yeah.
That's a really great way of summarizing it, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, I personally met you a few months ago at the Traps annual conference through the lovely Sydney Elliott.
Yeah.
In the short time that we've been connected, I've followed you closely on LinkedIn, and I've just seen no shortage of accomplishments and awesome things that you're doing. If you could narrow down a couple moments in your professional career that you're most proud of, what would they be and why?
Oh, that's hard. There've been quite a few that I've been very proud of. Um, if I had to pick maybe three to highlight, and I'll go very quickly. I think the first one was getting accepted into my doctoral program. I think getting my bachelor's and my master's was as a huge accomplishment. I'm the first of my family to go through school. And I told myself, I was like, once I get my master's, I'm done. That's it. I kind of had this dream of being Dr. Maloy or, Dr. Miranda. And so I was like,
Wow.
maybe. But getting accepted into my doctoral program really was like one of the biggest accomplishments of my life and getting the opportunity to go to do that. I currently attend Vanderbilt and I'm getting my doctorate in leadership and learning and organizations so that I can go on in my work with like public management and working with people and stuff of that nature. I feel like it's very translatable to what I do, not just in Parks and Recreation, but in community service, customer service, just helping out. I think it's great. The sky's the limit with that, really. So that's a really big one. Another one would be definitely winning my awards from NRPA. The 30 under 30 really took me by surprise. That was a huge accomplishment of mine. And then most recently
Of
getting
course.
the Young Professional Fellowship I cried. I definitely cried tears when Michael called me about it. Just being recognized by an organization that means so much to me is insane. Um, but I think the thing that I'm the most proud of over 12 years was when I was working in Temple, and I had just started. I am a very proud Hispanic woman, and it meant a great deal to me to be very open and loud and colorful and be myself. And so I noticed that there was a very large Hispanic community around us. And so I was like, well, why don't we just celebrate?
Mhm.
Let's celebrate Dia de los Muertos together, so the Day of the Dead, because it had always meant so much to me. And so my very first year putting it on, I did not know what to expect. I was hoping maybe 10 people would come through my rec center. We ended up having 650 people come through
Oh my
over the
goodness.
course of it. Yeah. Over the course of about a 3-hour event, we had 650 people walk through the building. And
Wow.
so that was an amazing, tremendous a day in my life. And I think even that would be really cool just as an accomplishment. But the best part was at the tail end as we're wrapping up and my feet are sore. And I'm dying to get my shoes off and take my makeup off because I had full Calavera face paint on.
Oh yeah.
um, I had a very sweet older woman come up to me, and I was just saying thank you for coming. And she grabbed my hands and she was crying and she said, "I really appreciate this. It's
Oh
wonderful to
wow.
see ourselves in our community, and I really appreciate this." And so, because we had one of the big parts of Day of the Dead is an ofrenda, which is an altar. So we had a community one, and I did not have any expectations for it. We put some paper up on the wall and was like, just leave a message. And we had the entire wall covered in handwritten letters and notes, in pictures people had printed of their
Wow.
deceased loved ones and brought to celebrate. And so her just saying that and just seeing that in my mind, like I recognized that it was there, even though I wasn't standing next to it, I saw it and I was like, you know what? That is just the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. And, I'm constantly chasing that feeling of like, I know I made a difference here. So, and I think everyone that gets into this job does it because of the difference we make. Certainly not for the money, but I think every parks professional you meet that's been in it for more than a couple years has one of those stories.
Of I'm sure the very long list of accomplishments that you had, those three are incredible on their own. I didn't realize that you were also juggling time going to school
Oh, yes.
for a doctorate of all things. Wow.
Thank
And
you.
that story is just so heartfelt. Talk about community, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm still a little bit kind of frazzled by the fact that you're doing your doctorate, because I know you're involved with associations, and I
Yeah.
want to ask you a little bit about your involvement there. But I'm just still so surprised that with your work that you do and studying for a doctorate, you're still also volunteering time in associations. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I'm a mom and a wife, so
Oh my goodness.
I don't sleep. People ask me all the time, "What's the secret? How do you do it?" I'm like, "I have insomnia. That's the secret." Um, but as
I'm part
far
of
as
that club.
right. As far as traps and NRPA goes, I think I got introduced to both institute or both organizations, excuse me, when I first started in the city of Temple, and I was just so astounded by the level of work that they did and how involved they were, even on such a
Mhm.
micro level, like a national organization like NRPA being involved in what a small city like Temple, Texas was doing, right? It was astounding to me. And so I first started like attending some of the trainings, like at the TRAPS regionals and some online webinars through NRPA. And I really got a taste of something that I truly, truly enjoy. I love obviously learning and lifelong learning. It's why I torture myself by going to school all the time. So that was my first kind of foray into those organizations. And then it just kind of grew from there. And TRAPS, we held a regional conference in Temple, I think 2.5 years in a row. It was supposed to rotate, and then everyone was like, well, y'all did it so well, just do it again. So I led the education task force. I was the chair for that. So we got to find and connect with other cities and get them to come speak at the conference. And so then, because I had done that on a regional level, it went to the state level. And so I currently help with the education task force for the state conference. So in
Amazing.
addition to doing trainings for them, I help pick different trainers that come to the conference as well. And then for NRPA, I've done a lot of their certificate programs, like their equity program. It was a phenomenal opportunity that they rolled out, an initiative, excuse me. And so I took that. And so I've done a lot of like feedback work with them. I've also done guest speaking and training for them.
Wow.
I'm one of the highlighted speakers at the NRPA conference this year as well.
Let's
So I get
go.
to, yeah, thank you. I get to pre-record my session actually at the end of next month. So that'll be
Wow.
involved. It'll be available in the virtual conference. So if you don't get to come to NRPA in Atlanta, you can still take my session.
Well, we'll be sure to link that in the written transcription of this as well. Congrats on that. Add it to the list of many
Yeah.
accomplishments, right?
Yes, it's been a good year for me. 2024 has been very kind to me, so I'm very grateful.
Well, let's keep that momentum going onward and upward.
Yes.
Well, when you're not busy empowering your community, studying for your doctorate, volunteering in multiple associations, developing training courses, I probably missed a few things, but when you're not busy doing all that and like the 6 minutes of spare time you have in any given
Right.
week, what can we catch you doing?
Ooh, it depends on my mood on the day. Some days I like to just go full goblin mode and just sit in bed and not get up. I think there's some days my body's just like, stop, let's stop. And so I will just binge watch shows on all the streaming services.
Okay.
But most days I'm with my kids, kind of, playing outside, or we're doing something, we're running around somewhere. I have two stepchildren that are 17, 16, and then I have a
Oh, wow.
biological that just turned 7. So
Wow.
I am a full spectrum mom here. So we're always running around doing something, going to the mall, dealing with drama, doing something. So most times I'm doing that. I'm spending time with the family. And most
Amazing.
recently, I've been spending some time doing some personal investment in myself, because I love training. I love sharing the wealth of knowledge I've accumulated over 12 years. So I am currently undertaking an endeavor of starting my own consulting agency, actually. So
Wow.
yeah, so by the time I retire, in however many years, several years down the line, hopefully I'll have a base. But I've created my own. I'm starting to create my own consulting firm to go out and help educate groups and communities on how to be the best versions of themselves as possible.
That's so special. My brain's still trying to compute how you make time for all these things, but kudos to you. It's
Thank you.
it's so impressive. On the note of the consultancy work that you're planning to do, what are some of the areas that you're looking to consult on?
Yeah, so I think based on my experience in Parks and Recreation, and what I think is really valuable to people in this area is that it's so translatable. So using that as a platform, plus the addition of my background as a marriage and family therapist and training when I got my degree, that's what I did. I was a counselor for several years on the side of everything that I was doing. So those were some fun years in my master's program. But based on that, and then what I'm currently getting my doctorate in, kind of all of this stuff I've amalgamated into an agency that I call ERA, and it's EIRA, and it stands for Educate, Innovate, Recreate, and Advocate. So
Wow.
yeah, so the consultancy stuff that I would do would be on organizational behavioral management, teamwork, conflict resolution, kind of best practices on how to get a team together, how to target a community and know where to go and really provide services. But I think one of the best things that I've always loved doing was uplifting people and creating a better generation of workers and just general people, honestly. So I
Mm,
think the advocate point of my consultancy is probably my favorite, just because I love to do that. I love building up people and inspiring them to advocate for themselves, advocate for their community, to become a team. And so that's kind of the realm that I'd be going into.
wow. Very impressive, Miranda. Very
Thank you.
impressive. Well, let's kick off a little bit of your consultancy here with our last question. What one piece of advice would you share to other Parks and Rec professionals?
Oh, it's so hard to boil it down to one,
Of
honestly.
course.
I think the one piece of advice that I would give any Parks and Recreation professional, and really any young professional or old professional or whoever, would be to be authentic, be your genuine self. And I
Mm,
think, especially in a realm like Parks and Recreation, there's so much potential to highlight who you are, because there are other people like that too. So, one thing that I've trained on a lot, and this is actually what my NRPA training is alternative recreation. So that's the marriage of like video games and live action role play and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. All the stuff that I have always loved. You don't traditionally see those things in community centers or in recreation centers,
Right.
but you should, because there are as many, if not more, health benefits to those things, because there's a social realm of wellness that comes with that. And there's a very
I
strong mental health wellness that comes with those programs. And I feel like when you are your genuine self, you inspire and uplift your community in a way that's necessary. There needs to be more individualism and more community. So, like, being who you are kind of opens the door for other people to be themselves too. So, whether you are a star athlete or an artist or a big old nerd like myself, right? Being your authentic self makes other people comfortable and allows them to be themselves as well. And it strengthens the bonds of your community, and it really just it's the best thing for you, and it's the best thing for where you live as well.
love that so much. And when you think about especially people who are involved in day-to-day programs of children and youth and
Yeah.
teenagers, oftentimes people look up to them so much.
Yeah.
So leading the way by being their authentic selves will, hopefully inspire future generations to do the same and
Oh
be as
yeah.
comfortable as they can in their skin. That's so awesome.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions I get asked a lot when I do trainings. Like, I do trainings for like the Girl Scouts, I do trainings for Parks and Recreation agencies, and it's always like, how do you work with people, or how do you mitigate behavior problems, right?
Uh-huh.
How do you talk to teens and work with kids? And it's the same thing that I think a lot of people forget, is that you just talk to them the way you would want to be talked to. Really, it is that golden rule or that
Right.
silver rule, whichever one it is. But just being authentic and having conversations, like, especially kids are so much smarter than people give them credit for.
Hmm.
My 7-year-old can talk circles around me, and I'm incredibly articulate. It's the next generation is learning so much faster than we did, and they're growing up with so much more that we did, that it's a disservice to them to not be authentic, to be genuine and be empathetic, really. So just be yourself, and it really does let them know that it's safe to be themselves as well.
What great advice.
Thank you.
Wow. Well, Miranda, learning about your journey has been incredibly inspiring. There was a lot that I knew, but so much more that I've learned today. I'm sure this conversation will be very inspiring for anybody else who tunes in. But I really want to thank you for taking that sliver of time that you have in your day to fit in this conversation. Congratulations on all that you do, and thank you for having such an impact on the lives of so many people.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. Take care now.
Thanks. Bye bye.